Everybody was talking about, oh my God, great Mike Tomlin. Look, he was 2-6 and he turned it around. Mike Tomlin, Mike Tomlin, Mike Tomlin. I love Mike Tomlin. Y'all know I love Mike Tomlin. That this season did nothing for me because this is exactly what I said it was going to do. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's another great day to discuss other people's excellence. I'm the Roberto on himself, and we have a great show today for you. We are doing our Steelers 2023 offseason plan. I'm going to look at what happened in the season that just occurred, and look ahead to see what we can be doing in the 2023 offseason so that we're ready to have a significant jump in the 2023 NFL season, because I believe we need to have a significant jump in the 2023 NFL season. All right. So let's do this. All right. So here's what happened in the recap. We finished 9-8 after a 2-6 start, finishing third in the AFC North. Mike Tomlin had his historic streak. Now, look, if you've seen any of the pods that we did early in the season, I predicted this was going to happen. I said we're going to finish 9-8, and everybody's going to applaud Mike Tomlin for going 9-8 again and not having a losing season. And I was very disappointed in Charles, as well as all these other quote unquote experts who swore that the Steelers weren't going to win more than 5 games this year, because I looked at the schedule and I said, bro, this is not a 5-win schedule by any stretch of the imagination. There are a lot of wins on this schedule. I predicted that we would miss out on 12 wins and get to 9-8. They actually did worse than I thought. There were 5 wins, 5, that we floundered away and still ended up 9-8, which again tells me that this roster is better than everybody swears it is, which tells me that this team is underperforming like a lot of Steeler fans that believe that they are. Yeah, man, you can't lose to the Patriots. You can't lose to the Browns without Deshaun Watson. You can't lose to the Jets. Like, I don't care if it was earlier in the season when the Jets were playing well. You shouldn't have lost that game. I'm counting the Dolphins game only because for this reason and this reason alone, we led the league in interceptions this year, and I don't even think it was close. We had like 20 interceptions. We literally dropped 4 interceptions in that game. 4. If we pick off 2 of them, we probably win the game. And it doesn't even matter which 2, because all 4 of them would have either taken away points for the Dolphins and or put us in a position to score points. We only lost by 6. Again, if you take away, if you have 2 of those interceptions, you most likely win that game. And I'll give them that credit because I'm guessing it's because Tua is left-handed. Spiral's a little bit different if you're not used to it, that type of thing. But they dropped 4 easy ones. I think one of them was the only one that's like, okay, that was a hard catch. The other ones, I mean, come on. So that's a game. You can't lose to Baltimore when they're on their 3rd-string quarterback. That can't happen. Yeah, and that's the 5. That's the 5 games. So we finished the year 7-2. It should have been 8-1 because again, that Baltimore game, there's no reason you should have lost that game. And that's the funny thing. If you didn't drop all 5, if you only drop 4 of those games, you make the playoffs. Now, I'm kind of glad we didn't make the playoffs when it's all said and done, because I didn't want us to be 10-7 and then get blown out in the first round as the 7th seed. That does nothing for me. Again, my issue going into the season was this was a team that should have well into double-digit wins, potentially compete for the division, get into the playoffs, and maybe at least put themselves in a position to win a playoff game. That's all I wanted. I didn't want us to go to the AFC Championship game. I didn't want us to win the Super Bowl. I just wanted us to have a better record than 9-8, and I wanted us to have an opportunity to really compete in a playoff game and potentially win a playoff game. That's all I was looking for. Instead, I got what I got. Once again, 9-8, like I said, and I said we're either going to barely miss or barely make the playoffs. And we literally were a field goal away from making the playoffs. So it's just one of those things where, and again, everybody was talking about, oh my God, great Mike Tomlin. Look, he was 2-6 and he turned it around. Mike Tomlin, Mike Tomlin, Mike Tomlin. I love Mike Tomlin. Y'all know I love Mike Tomlin. That this season did nothing for me because this is exactly what I said it was going to do. Now I will say this: I'm going to give him, and I'm begrudgingly doing this, but I'm going to give him a pass one last time for one reason and one reason only. The TJ Watt injury was major. And again, we did a pod, and I was furious about that Bengals game because of the TJ Watt injury. Because I knew it was going to be furious. Because I knew it was going to be a big deal. But it was huge because, to be fair, you had a new quarterback trying to figure out that system. The offense was absolutely horrible, and we'll get to that in another slide. And so not having TJ Watt on that defense, because he's really your closer, right? And one thing about TJ is not only does he get sacks and everything else, he's just clutch. When you need a play to be made defensively, he usually makes it. When you need that sack, when you need that fumble, he usually does it. So not having him there for those first three games, but you need him against the Patriots, the Browns, and the Jets, I think he would have turned the table on all those games. And him not being there didn't allow them to overcome the issues that they were having on offense. And therefore, you have the 2-6 start. So that's so that's the only reason I'm going to give Mike Tomlin a pass this time and this time only. Because that TJ Watt injury, it was just bad timing, right? Even if it happened later on in the season, it probably would have been better because at least your offense was a little bit more capable. The fact that it happened when it did, it was just bad timing because you needed him there the most at that point. So that's the only reason why I'm going to give him a slight pass. But I'm sorry. Next year, I need to see more. I need to see more. Here's our opponents next season. Okay, you look at that schedule. That's not a murderer's row schedule. Once again, I'm saying they need to win 11 plus games. 11 plus. Let's just say you split your division. And we have it here, right? There's no Buffalo. There's no Kansas City. There's no Chargers. There's no Miami. I mean, these are some of the best teams in the AFC that you don't have to face. The only two playoff teams that you got to face next year are the ones in your division. I mean, come on now. Those are the only playoff teams from the ones that were in this year's playoffs. Those are the only ones that you got to face are the ones that are in your division. So obviously you got to face them. Come on now, and the Jaguars. I mean, come on now. You gotta. I mean, so if you look at it, they split their division this year. Let's say you do that again. If you just split with your division, right? That's 3 wins. The Cardinals at home, that's got to be a win. The Patriots at home, that has to be a win. The Titans at home, that has to be a win. I'm going to say the Jaguars at home has to be a win. That's really the only measuring stick game you have this year. And we'll get to Kenny Pickett in a minute. Especially, and obviously we don't know the schedule yet, but if that game's later in the season, as in November, December, and they have to go to freezing Pittsburgh, you got to win that game. Sorry. You have to win that game. That's 7. The Texans, that's got to be a win. The Colts, that's got to be a win. That's 9. The Raiders, I mean, even if they get Tom Brady, don't let a 46-year-old Tom Brady beat you, bro. I'm sorry. They don't have a great offensive line. Their defense isn't that great. The only thing they'll have is Tom Brady and weapons. And again, he'll be 46. You can't let this man continue to be your boogeyman. So that's 10 wins right there. That's 10 wins right there. And now you're talking about the Rams and the Seahawks on the road. I mean, as of right now, it doesn't look like the Rams are going to be that good. So that should be a win. The Seahawks, that's going to be a hard game simply because it's on the road. If there was anything I would change about this schedule, I would flip San Francisco and Seattle, right? I would rather have Seattle at home because then I think that's a definite win. And the 49ers are one of the few games I think is a definite loss. So because it's a definite loss anyway, I'd rather go, you know what I mean? I'd rather have that game on the road. Now you could make the argument because there's that stat that West Coast teams playing on 1 o'clock on the East Coast is like it's abysmal. So I don't know if that's the case. If it's a 1 o'clock game at home, maybe you have a much better chance of winning that game. But as of right now, I can't put that as a dub. Like I'm gonna put some respect in their name. They're in the NFC Championship game right now. They're playing well. That defense looks amazing. So let's just say that's a loss. But between LA and Seattle, figure out a way to win. Green Bay could potentially might not be good if Aaron Rodgers is gone. We don't know what's going on with Lamar Jackson right now. What if he's gone? So now instead of splitting with Baltimore, you better win both of those games. Deshaun Watson, I'm going to assume the Browns are going to be better with a full offseason and everything. But let's say it still takes them some time to figure that out. You see what I'm saying? I mean, besides the Bengals, if we're being honest here, if we're being really honest, besides the Bengals and the San Francisco game, there's no team on this schedule that you say is a definite loss. The Packers at home, if Aaron Rodgers is there, okay. But again, let's just say you split with Cincinnati. That's still only three opponents, right? Cincinnati wants Green Bay, San Francisco. That's only three opponents that you would say that you would look at on the schedule and say that's a definite loss. By the way, I keep saying every year I say split with Baltimore. We've swept Baltimore a lot the last couple of years. We should have swept them again this year. So, but again, I always give respect to the Ravens to say they'll win one, right? I will never sit there and say, yeah, we're going to sweep Baltimore. So I always say sweep. I mean, I always say split. But again, y'all look at this schedule. You tell me I'm crazy. You tell me I'm crazy. I'm looking at this schedule. The Bengals and San Francisco are the only teams that I'm looking at on this schedule and say, yeah, that's a definite loss. There's no way you can beat them if they're playing to full strength. We don't, maybe LA, but we don't know who's going to be there, who's not going to be there. You know what I mean? They're talking about Ramsey not being there and maybe Aaron Donald. They're talking about potentially blowing it up, right? And restarting because I think they finally have a first round pick next year. So come on now. You see it. You tell me if I'm crazy. San Francisco, Cincinnati, potentially Green Bay. Those are the only teams on this schedule that I sit there and say, ooh, that's going to be hard. Got to get it done, man. Like, no more excuses. I'm tired of the excuses. I'm tired of, oh my God, well, we know who our quarterback is now. We're keeping our offense coordinator, which is what I'm about to get into in just a second. So no more excuses. Again, I'm not asking us to win the Super Bowl here. I'm asking us to take advantage of a mediocre at best. I mean, a mediocre at best schedule. Win 11 plus games, get into the playoffs firmly, not this, you know, waiting on the edge of our seats on the last week to see who wins and who loses. No, no, no. Get into the playoffs firmly and potentially win a playoff game. If you, again, if you take advantage, remember, Cincinnati has to play Kansas City and Buffalo, and it's the Ravens have to play the Chargers. They have harder schedules than we do. So if you just take advantage of your schedule and you win 12 plus games, you can mess around and win your divisions, not because you're the best team in the division, but you had the easiest schedule. If you mess around and win your division and be the 3 seed, right? Now you get to play that team that came in 6th place that probably barely made the playoffs at home. You see what I'm saying? Like you get to play who made the playoffs this year? A Chargers team or a Raiders or somebody like that. Like you get to play that team at home. You see where I'm going with this? That's a game you can win. Now, if you win that game and then go to Kansas City and get blown out of the water, or you win that game and go to Buffalo and get blown out of the water, or you win that game and go to Cincinnati and get blown out of the water, hey, good season, Pittsburgh. You did your job, right? You beat the teams you were supposed to beat. You racked up wins. You got into the playoffs. You beat a mediocre team in the first round of the playoffs. I'm not asking you to beat the juggernauts. That's not what I'm asking you to do. That's not what I'm asking you to do. There's no reason why that can't. There's no reason looking at this. Again, we don't know the schedule. We don't know. And obviously, the schedule sometimes makes it harder or easier, right? If you have, some really hard games back to back and stuff like that, it changes a lot. Again, that Jaguars game becomes much easier or harder depending on when it's played. If it's earlier in the year when it's warmer, it's a little bit harder versus if it's in December. If it's in December, I'm sorry. Don't let them boys come into Pittsburgh when it's 20 degrees outside and beat you. I'm sorry. That can't happen. That can't happen. That's all I'm asking for, man. I'm tired of this 9-8 bullcrap. Our schedule itself has made it so that we should be winning double-digit games. And I'm not talking about 10 wins. I'm talking about 11 plus for the last 4 years. That's what we should have been doing. So let's do it this year. No more excuses. You see the schedule. You tell me if I'm bugging. You look at this schedule and tell me you don't count 11 plus wins on here. Speaking of our offense, this guy, man. Matt Canada. It was announced last week we're going to keep him. A lot of Steelers fans are split on this. Some are really pissed off. Some are very happy about this. I'm numb to it. I'm okay with it for one reason and one reason only. It seems like Kenny Pickett wants him. So fine, if my young quarterback wants him, then I'm cool with it. Because I do understand the notion of you don't want a young quarterback learning a new system every year, right? Give him at least a chance to work a full offseason in a system, see if he could get better, see if the offense could get better. I'm cool with it. And he only has 1 year left on his deal. The Steelers don't fire anybody. So I'm not at all surprised that he got to keep the job because they'll let him, work his contract through. And if the offense stinks next year, they won't retain him. I'm okay with that. That's fine. And again, in fairness to him, this is the first time he will get a full offseason to work with a quarterback. Because right, he was offensive coordinator of Ben's last year, and then this year we had 2 different quarterbacks. So in fairness to him, maybe the offense gets better now that he has a full offseason to work with somebody. Cool. But some of you Steelers fans, you need to put your black and yellow pom-poms down, bro. Seriously. Some of y'all make no damn sense talking about he earned the right to keep his job. He did not earn the right. Do you see these numbers? You tell me how somebody has earned the right to keep their job with these numbers. Let's go over the numbers. We were 23rd in yards per game, 23rd in total yards per game. We were 24th in passing yards, 16th in rushing, 14th in penalties, that's not good. 30th in QBR, 26th in total points, 26th in points per game, 6th in turnovers. How the heck does an offensive coordinator with those numbers earn the right to keep their job? Again, I'm okay with him keeping his job. I just told you why I'm okay with it. He's keeping his job because there's only 1 year left on his deal, and the rookie quarterback wants to try it again with him. Fine. I'm perfectly fine with that. Truly am. But to say he's earned the right to keep his job, that is just asinine. That is asinine. Our offense was not good. Yes. Was it better towards the end of the season? Of course it was. But that's because our offense was absolutely abysmal to start the season. At one point, we were dead last in offense. Dead last. The only reason why those numbers got as high as they did is because in the second half of the season, I think we were like 17th in offense. So, mind you, I can understand that they were, dead last beginning of the year, number one at the end of the year, and now we're like at 15, 16. We were dead last, and then we were 17th. That's how you get these high 20s numbers or low 20s numbers, however you want to look at it. It's not good. That's not somebody who's earned the right to keep their job, bro. This offense does not score. It does not pass well at all. It does not do anything for the quarterback. The one thing that we did do well was maintain drives. And that's what people said, oh, yeah, well, we were maintaining drives. I'm sorry. Is maintaining drives not the bare minimum of what an offense is supposed to do? That's like the point of the game. You get 4 downs to get 10 yards. If you get to 10 yards, you get 4 more downs to get another 10 yards. That's your job, to move down the field and potentially score. So what he did as an offense was half of the bare minimum job. And it shows, because this is the good numbers. Second in the league in third downs made, 7th in the league in third down percentage. That's good. Third in the league in fourth down percentage. That's good. 15th in the league in first downs. Okay, so like literally half of the league. I couldn't find the exact number, but I did see a stat that we had the most 10-play drives of any team in the league this year. Okay, good. And we were 9th in plays, which then goes to show, most 10-play drives, right? 9th in plays. And honestly, we would probably be first. But again, our offense was so abysmal to begin the season with. We couldn't even get first downs. So, yes, our offense looked 10 times better towards the end of the year than it did the beginning of the year. But that's because our offense at the beginning of the year was horrible. We could not even get first downs to start the season. And yeah, we were really good at driving the football at the end of the year. Every time we got the football, you could at least count on us getting at least 1 or 2 first downs. Absolutely. Matter of fact, it was very rare we went 3 and out on that second half of the season. I will give him that. The offense looked really good at driving the ball. Horrible in the red zone. And a lot of times we didn't even make the red zone. It'd be one thing if we were driving to get into the red zone where we could at least kick field goals. We got to like that 40-yard mark and then things got spooky. So it wasn't even a 20-20 game. It was like a 20-40 game. Again, that's not great. In the NFL, that's the bare minimum for you to be able to get the ball and drive at least to the other side of the field. That's the bare minimum. If you can't even do that, you shouldn't be an offensive coordinator, period. And not to mention, I got to point this out. Our offense did better when we went away from his schemes. Our offense looked better when we stopped doing the stuff that he wanted to do. All those jet sweeps, all those wide receiver reverses, all that side to side nonsense that I kept talking about. When we went back to a regular north south running football style, that's when our offense took off. So, again, as the offensive coordinator, if we're doing better not doing what you want to do, what do I need you for? Think about that. If we perform better not doing what makes you unique as an offensive coordinator, what do I need you for? Can you get somebody else to do that? In the NFL, again, it's the bare minimum that you're supposed to be able to move the ball up and down the field. What separates the good offensive coordinator from the bad offensive coordinator is obviously play calls, which I still think some of the play calls were horrible. And two, what makes our system unique? What makes our system something that people have to account for every week? We weren't doing the things that Matt Canada wanted to do that made teams want to account for us. Now, granted, when we ran jet sweeps at the end of the season, they were way more effective. Why? Because we ran them only once a game. This fool had us doing it every time. Every time we used to get the football, we ran a jet sweep or we ran a freaking wide receiver reverse. We didn't do that towards the end of the year. He was very good at selecting when to do it, and it was very effective because the defense didn't know it was coming, and it was effective. They usually went for big plays, which is what he wanted to do. But you can't do that every single time you have the football. People know it's coming. So I'm okay with him keeping his job simply off the notion that him and Kenny Pickett will have another year to see if they can take this offense to the next level. But by no means in hell did this man earn the right to keep his job. In no way can we sit here and say, and I've heard Steeler fans say it over and over again, defending him like he did some miracle. Well, did you see what he did in the second half? Did you see what he did in the second half? The offense got better. Come on. What are we talking about? The offense got better. Okay. The offense progressed to a bare minimum offense. By the way, in that second half, it was still the defense that led us to wins. We scored 6 points, six against the Vegas Raiders before that last drive. Against the Baltimore Ravens, we scored 9 points before that last drive. So my offensive coordinator that was so good during the second half of the season, we still weren't putting up points. We still weren't good enough to win. Our defense kept us in games. And credit to the offense coordinator, credit to Kenny Pickett, they were able to drive down for game-winning drives. Again, that does not mean this man earned the right. That's like if I'm a defensive coordinator and my whole thing is these extravagant blitz schemes that never work and we're giving up a bunch of points. Finally, we stopped blitzing. We stopped doing the thing I want to do. And now we're not giving up as many explosive plays, but we're still allowing people to score on us. Maybe just not as much. Do I deserve to keep my job? We went away from what I wanted to do. Our defense got better because of it. But we're still not great. We're just middle of the pack. Do I deserve to keep my job? So we'll see, man. He's got to do better. Now let me talk about my quarterback, man. As you guys know, I was not a fan of Kenny Pickett. Not because I didn't think it would be good. I just didn't think he'd be great. And in the AFC, you need to be great. And we saw it even this year. There's two more names to add to the mix. Justin Herbert has officially entered the conversation. And Trevor Lawrence has officially entered the conversation. And so in a conference in which you have Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, your quarterback has to be better than probably half the names on this list in order for you to even have a chance to compete. And I don't know if Kenny Pickett is going to be that. Now, let's look at what he did his rookie season. I thought it was solid. I think a lot of times we get caught up. A lot of these quarterbacks have come in and been, almost every year it seems rewriting the record books and what rookie quarterbacks do. And so that's not fair to compare Kenny Pickett to that because that's, I didn't think he would come in and set the world on fire anyway. But I thought it was solid. Thought it was solid. There was a lot of Joe Burrow comparisons when he came out, and I think that's a perfect way to describe what he is. So let's look at it. The good Joe Burrow, Burrow 2.0. He got better as the season went on, had a ton of turnovers, really bad decisions early in his career, but really cleaned that up towards the end of the year, which was good, right? That's a major thing. If you're a rookie quarterback, to be able to slow down, not make the bad decisions, not turn the ball over, perfect. I think he only had like 1 or 2 interceptions the last like handful of games, like 5 weeks of the season, which is huge. He proved that he's clutch and he proved that he's poised. If the game is close and you need a drive, if you need a touchdown, he proved that he can take the team on his back, drive down the field, deliver the goods. That's awesome. That is huge, right? In the NFL, it don't, sometimes it don't matter what you do the first 3 quarters. If you can lock in when you need to lock in and get it done, that's it. That's where legends are made, right? And he proved that. Even against that Dolphins game, he put together a drive. I think people forget that because we lost that game, but it was 4th and 10, and he put a absolute dime on Pat Freiermuth. He had some other plays during that drive that was well. Matter of fact, the only reason why we lost, it was a miscommunication between him and Deontay. He thought Deontay was going to still go towards the end zone. Deontay came back towards the ball, and it was intercepted. Game over. But he was putting together a drive on that one. So I saw it as early as the Dolphins game where I said, okay, if it's close, he knows how to deliver. He did it against the Raiders and he did it against the Ravens. Cool. I want to give credit when credit is due. That is huge, right? That clutch factor is huge. If I just pointed out all those quarterbacks, if you plan on being in that conversation, being clutch is going to be huge. And the fact that he's poised, the fact that mistakes don't rattle him, he can make a mistake and come right back and just perform. A plus on that regard. Okay. So he does seem to have that it factor that we talk about in terms of just being able to not letting the moment be too big for him and doing what he has to do. That's Joe Burrow like. And towards the end of the year, he seems to have nice chemistry with George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, and Najee Harris. Those are the 3 guys he probably needs to have the most chemistry with. And that's great. The fact that that trio of weapons is starting to gel with him, those are going to be our future. I'm glad to see that. The bad is, and this is where, I've always said, is he baby Burrow or is he Burrow 2.0? Because Burrow 2.0 means he's Joe Burrow. Baby Burrow is he's a discount version of Joe Burrow. And again, I don't know if the discount version of Joe Burrow is good enough to be in this mix. So not finishing drives in the red zone, not all of that was on Matt Canada. I gave Matt Canada a lot of shit for that in the last slide. But some of that, to be fair, was on Kenny Pickett, missing some throws, missing some receivers. Not obviously the red zone is huge because it gets condensed. It's a lot harder. The windows are tighter. Your decision making has to be top shelf. And so us not finishing drives, some of that's on the quarterback as well. Not all of that is on the offensive coordinator. Some of that is on the quarterback. So that's big. He didn't throw for a lot of yards, nor did he throw for a lot of touchdowns. Again, you saw the numbers. We were not good in passing. We were not good in passing. And Kenny Pickett started most of the games this season. So that's on him. Okay. Um, and he didn't show that he could be with the best. I mean, being clutch is great, but if you need your defense to keep it low scoring for you to be clutch, I hate to tell you, when you play those great teams, you're not going to show how clutch you are. Because again, I'll repeat, we only scored 6 points against the Raiders before he had that game-winning drive. We only had 9 points against the Ravens before he had that game-winning drive. We only had 10 points against the Dolphins before he almost had that game-winning drive. So if you need your defense to keep it a very, 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 very low scoring game before you can showcase your clutch factor, then we're not even going to be able to see that clutch factor often, because against some of the best teams, you can't ask your defense to hold them to less than 15 points. You can't do it. You just can't do it. So that is something that's the next evolution. Can he start airing it out? Can he start flinging the football all over the field? Can he show that he can put up points, put up yards, sling it with the best of them? Again, that's why that Jaguars game to me is a must win. You know Trevor Lawrence is going to bring it. You need to bring it. Match his intent. Again, you have 2 games against Joe Burrow and you have a game against Trevor Lawrence. I really want to see in year 2, can he go tat for tat with those guys? Because if he can't, I'm sorry, at some point you're going to have to think about trading him and starting over again at quarterback. Not because he's not good, but because in order to win a Super Bowl, which I thought was the standard, right? That goes back to my Mike Tomlin thing. I'm holding Mike Tomlin to the standard that he swears he wants to be held to. So if the standard is winning Super Bowls, I need a quarterback that can go out there and match the greatness of a Joe Burrow, of a Patrick Mahomes, of a Josh Allen, of a Trevor Lawrence. And if he can't, I got to get somebody that can. And again, the numbers prove he only had 1 game where he went for 300 plus yards, and that was against Buffalo when we got destroyed. So we were obviously just throwing it every play. Now, granted, he showed greatness and he showed toughness in that game. So again, he's checking off a lot of those boxes. But again, can you fling it all over the yard like some of these other guys can? He only had two other games where he had 250 yards. Both of them were losses. And he only had 1 game after that where he threw. So of his, I think, how many games did he play? Like 12, 13 games. He only had 4 where he threw for over 200 yards. 1 for 300. Again, it was a blowout loss against Buffalo, where we didn't even run the ball after the first quarter. 2 more were 250 yards games that we both lost. I think one was against the Dolphins. I think the other one was against that Bengals team. And he only had one other game with 200, and we won that game. And I think that was the Ravens game, I think. So that's where it's baby Burrow, right? If you're discounting Joe Burrow where you could be clutch, but you can't match the points, match the yards, match the big plays that these other guys can, that's when you discount Burrow, your baby Burrow. And I don't think that's going to cut it. Again, I think Kenny Pickett in the NFC will be amazing. In the AFC, I don't know, man. I really don't know. Okay, here are our off-season needs. This is an order of priority, in my opinion. We need a corner desperately. Our corners are so bad, and they are the reason why our defense isn't as good as it could be. We need a middle linebacker. Our middle linebackers get torched by any decent tight end. They get torched. We need a defensive tackle. We were much better against the run this year than we were last year. A lot of guys that were injured 2 years ago in the 2021 season came back this year. And so we were much better against the run this year. But those guys are older. They're not long-term answers anyway. You need some new blood on that D-line next to Cam Hayward. Left tackle. I know a lot of people might be like having a heart attack that left tackle is so far low on this list. There's a reason why I have Dan Moore, our left tackle, on the screen here. Um, I don't think our offensive line is as bad as other people do. Could it be improved? Yeah. But I'm going to go off of what Ryan Clark said one time. And again, I'm just going to defer to the people that played. The NFL is one of those things when you talk about offensive line. He said you have a top five line, you have a bottom five line. Everybody else is kind of just in between. And as long as you're in that middle, you're good. You know what I mean? Like you want to have a top five line. You obviously don't want to have a bottom five line, but as long as you are somewhere in the middle there, that's usually what most NFL lines are, and you can get away with that. And I think that's where we were. I think we greatly last year we had a bottom five line, and it wasn't even close. Last year we had a bottom five line, and it wasn't even close. This year, I thought we were a middle of the pack line, and the numbers prove it. Like we there was only one game I think where Kenny Pickett was getting destroyed in terms of sacks, and that was against the Eagles. And the Eagles led the NFL in sacks this year. They were sacking everybody. So there you go. Well, you saw the rushing numbers. We were actually running the ball really well this year. Matter of fact, we would have ran the ball better at the beginning of the year, but Najee Harris was hurt. He didn't feel right with those screws in his foot. And I don't think, and there were lots of things on Twitter showcasing that he was missing holes, right? He just wasn't seeing the hole. He had gaping wide holes and he wasn't running through them. He fixed that. Plus, he got the screws out of his foot, and he was running like a madman towards the end of the year. So, uh, I think our line is okay. I think we forget Dan Moore is only a second-year player. He's in that same draft class as Najee Harris and Pat Fryermuth. So he's still a young guy trying to figure it out. Is he the worst left tackle in football? No, absolutely not. Is he the best? No, absolutely not. But I guess my thing is if we fix all that, if you tell me we fix all of our other needs, but our line still stays the same next year, I'm actually okay with that. I think our line will improve just off of another year. Also, remember this too. We added, I think, two new offensive linemen. So they had to gel. So just by having them have a full year to, be together again might improve the line. And again, Dan Moore is only a second year dude. He can still improve. Now, the one thing I will say is our line is a little weird where the left side of our line is really good at run blocking, but just okay at pass blocking. Or the right side of our line is really good at pass blocking, just okay at run blocking. So that is something you got to think about, trying to have a cohesive line where you can run on both sides and you can pass protect on both sides. So yeah, left tackle is something that we could be addressed, right? If we can move Dan Moore to right side, maybe he'll be better there, or maybe even move him inside the guard, or at least have him as a backup because at least he's a serviceable backup. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Obviously, we always want to strive to have a top five line. I just don't think it's as much of a need as other Steeler fans make it out to be. A lot of people have left tackle as like our number one need over corner and everything else. I'm not there yet. I think we need to fix this defense and then figure out what we can do with that offensive line. So, we need a strong safety. We need a third receiver. We need a left guard. We can need a center, backup, because we'll get into what we're about to do with the backups. And we definitely gonna need a backup. And the edge rusher, last but not least, this is like least. But having a Highsmith replacement potentially, because I don't know if we're gonna pay him. We could extend him this year. I don't think they will. I think they'll try to wait till after next year, but he's probably, if he plays like he did this year, he's going to demand a lot of money, and I don't think we're going to want to give that to him. We already have the most expensive defense in the league, so I don't know how much more money you can invest in that defense before you got to start thinking younger, right? So yeah, but just having a backup just to spell TJ Watt, spell Highsmith, keep a good rotation is big. So potential free agency moves here. Here's what I think we can do and probably will at least try to do. Resign Terrell Edmonds, which will be a safety. Resign Cam Sutton, Robert Spillane, DeMonte KZ. Um, Tremaine Edmonds is a guy that a lot of Steelers fans want us to get. The brother of Terrell Edmonds. Tremaine Edmonds is one of the best middle linebackers in football. Getting him would be a major upgrade. He's not going to come cheap though. He's not again. He's one of the best middle linebackers in football. He just saw what Roquan Smith got. He'll probably ask for not that much, but probably somewhere a little bit less than that. That's a lot of money, especially for a middle linebacker. But we'll see. And then Isaiah Wynn, who's probably not going to be retained by the Patriots as a left tackle, or Taylor Lewan. All indications are he will be cut by the Titans, and he's expressed interest in wanting to play for the Steelers. So those are two left tackle options that you can get. In terms of cuts, Mitch Trubisky, I'll get into him in a second. Mason Rudolph, William Jackson III. If we cut him, I would want to try to see if we could bring him back for a cheaper price. He's just way too expensive for a guy that never played for you. Um, I forgot what his cap hit would be if we keep him, but it's much cheaper to just cut him. Um, but I know he's somebody that they've wanted for a long time. We wanted him over Artie Burns. The Bengals traded up ahead of us and got him in the draft. Um, so he's somebody that if I cut, I'm cutting hopefully with the intention of just re-signing him to a cheaper deal. Along with Miles Jack. Miles Jack was a trade we made last offseason. He played okay for us. Wasn't great, wasn't terrible. But again, if you cut him because just to save money, hopefully you could bring him back at a cheaper price. Especially if you do get Tremaine Edmonds, Miles Jack and Tremaine Edmonds as your two middle linebackers. That's a pretty now we're talking in terms of that middle linebacker position. Um, and then again, William Jackson III and bringing back Cam Sutton would make me feel a lot better about our corner position too. Although I still would draft a corner. They're talking about trading potentially Deontay Johnson. I'll have more on that in a later slide. But Mitch Trubisky, man, Mitch Trubisky was a guy that I was very happy that we signed. Was a guy that I thought would be a good bridge quarterback for us. Was a reason why I didn't want us to get Kenny Pickett. Because again, I just talked about how I feel about Kenny Pickett and his potential. Mitch Trubisky would have been perfect for what we wanted to do. If we went 9-8 with Mitch Trubisky this year, I would have been ecstatic. Even if we go 9-8 next year with Mitch Trubisky, I would be happy. You know why? Because let's just say we fix all our other needs, and now the only thing we need is quarterback. Next year's draft class, the 2024 draft class, is amazing in terms of potential quarterbacks. So if you do what you got to do this offseason and you fix all your other needs, and Mitch Trubisky is your quarterback, you can let him walk. You say thank you for your services, and you could trade up and get a quarterback. Even if you have to trade up a lot to go get him, you could trade up and get a quarterback because your team is already set. Right? I'm a firm believer. Get your team together first, then go get your quarterback. Because you can always trade up and get a quarterback. Right? If I have a full team, that means there's no amount of picks I wouldn't be able to give up because I got everything. So Mr. Trubisky is a guy that I was happy to get because I thought that he would at least be able to hold his water for the next year or two while we looked for a quarterback as we continue to build out this roster and wait for that next young quarterback to go get. Instead, we got a guy who was absolutely horrible this year. Absolutely horrible this year. 4 of the 5 games that I'm talking about that we dropped, Mitch Trubisky was the quarterback. 4 to 5. Including that Ravens game with their third string quarterback. And once again, we moved the ball up and down the field, but Mitch Trubisky threw not 1, not 2, but 3 interceptions in the red zone, or at least at the 40-yard line. One of them was on 1st and 10, in which he threw into double coverage. When it was like, bro, if it wasn't there, just throw it away. It was 1st and 10. Now, again, maybe that's a bad call by Matt Canada. But why would you throw that? You already had thrown 2 interceptions. So he played horrible. But then this fool had the nerve, the absolute nerve, to sit there and say, oh, you know what? I should have waited in free agency. My regret was signing day 1 of free agency. He was one of the first people signed in free agency, period. I remember that. He was one of, if not the first alert that I ever saw in free agency this year. He signed day 1. Talking about, oh, I should have waited. I should have waited to see what else was. Negro, there was nothing else out there for you. The Steelers were one of only 2 teams even rumored to want you. The other team was the Giants as a backup role. Like, what are we talking about? So now we have a guy who doesn't even take credibility for his own terrible play. And he's trying to put it on, oh, I should have waited. No, bro, nobody wanted you. Not only did we sign you day 1, like hour 1 of free agency. Again, they didn't know they were going to get Kenny Pickett at 20. They thought he would be gone. And so they signed you with the full intention of making you the starter. And then here's what really pisses me off. Here's what really pisses me off. And again, I blame Mike Tomlin for this. Even after they drafted Kenny Pickett, they gave you the starting job. They gave him the starting job, y'all. He had most of the 1 reps during training camp and the preseason. And he had all of the 1 reps in the preseason games, all of them. We never got to see Kenny Pickett play with the 1s during preseason. And I, like most Steeler fans, were like, well, wait a minute. If it's a fair competition, the way y'all keep saying it is, why isn't Kenny Pickett getting any reps with the 1s? Because even in the preseason, you saw that the offense was moving much better with Kenny Pickett. Much better with Kenny Pickett. But of course, people say, well, he's playing with the 2s and the 3s, and he's playing against backup defenses. Okay, fine. Put him in with the 1s, and let's see. They never did it. They never did it. Even when the 3rd preseason game against the Detroit Lions, mind you, the Detroit Lions had the worst defense in football this year until like the very end of the year when Minnesota finally took it from them. So the Detroit Lions, who had the 2nd worst defense in football, Mitch Trubisky couldn't get any offense going for the 1 reps. And I'm sitting there like, yo, Mike, put Kenny in, man. Let's see what he got. Never did it. Instead, he let him play the entire first half until finally in the 2-minute drill, I think we scored right before halftime. And Mike Tomlin was like, oh, we wanted to give him that opportunity because he didn't get that opportunity like everybody else did. And they gave him the starting job. And I knew then Mike Tomlin was on some bullshit. I knew then what it was. They signed Mr. Trubisky. They basically assured him he would get the job. And they sabotaged the competition so that he would get the job. And yet, Mr. Trubisky, you came in and you played like absolute dog dookie. And you're mad that you lost your job to Kenny Pickett. Bro, you were horrible. You were horrible. And then Kenny Pickett got hurt twice this season. So you had a chance to come in and save the day as the backup. You didn't even do that. Again, 3 interceptions against the Ravens. That loss sealed our season. That loss was the reason why we couldn't make the playoffs. But now you're talking about you wish that you would have signed or waited for what? What were you waiting for, Mitch? What were you waiting for? Like, get over yourself, bro. Get over yourself. I just had to get that off my chest because Charles was right about Mr. Trubisky. He is a bum in every sense of the word, not just with his play, but with his mentality, and with his heart. Good luck always being a bust of your draft class because you got drafted before Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. Sorry, not sorry. Like I hate people like that. Not only did they show every confidence in you in the world, they gave you the job, gift wrapped it for you, even when it was obvious that you didn't deserve it, and you're still throwing these passive aggressive shots at the organization. Bro, go kick rocks, bro. Go kick rocks. And here's the funny thing. I want us to trade him, and I want us to trade Mr. Trubisky because, as you're going to see in a second, we need middle round draft picks. We don't have a fifth or a sixth round pick. But here's the thing, Mitch. I don't think anybody would want you. I don't think anybody would give up a fifth or a sixth round pick for you. Not with the way you played this year, and certainly not with the way you've been talking. Because any organization would look at you and hear your comments and saw the way you played and saw the situation and said, "Oh yeah, I don't want this guy on my team. I don't want this guy anywhere on my team, especially not for a pick." Now, if we cut you, I'm sure you'll get a backup job somewhere. But no, absolutely not. So go kick rocks. Go ahead and cut them. We'll figure out backups somewhere else. Potential draft moves. We have 7 picks in the draft. Like I just said, we have a first, we have 2 second-rounders, which is good. We have a third, a fourth, and we have 2 7th-rounders. Um, Again, that's where trading both Mitch and or Mason Rudolph would be great. Hopefully, between one of them, you get at least a 6th-round pick. You know what I mean? Um, you could probably get a 7th for Mason Rudolph, probably get a 6th for Mr. Trubisky. So at least you have 3 7ths to work with, and you have a 6th. So the only thing you don't have is a 5th-round pick. But we'll see what they do. But again, cut them. Both of them, just cut them. I'm sick of them. To me, I'm just focusing on those top 3 picks, those first 3 picks, the first and the 2 seconds. In my opinion, the priority has to be corner, maybe even 2, defensive tackle, and then either middle linebacker or left tackle, depending on what you do in free agency. Oh, I meant to. I want to see what Omar Khan can do. This is first year as our new GM, first off season, I should say. He's supposed to be a capologist, supposed to be able to work his magic with the numbers, right? And making it all fit with the cap. Let's see what he can do. Can he figure out a way to sign the guys we need? Because we have a decent amount of cap space. It's not that we don't have cap space, but obviously we don't have a buku amount of money. And obviously we're not teams like the Rams or the Dallas Cowboys that could just overpay people and be okay with the results. So let's see what he can do. Can he convince Tremaine Edmonds to come here for cheaper to play with his brother? Could we re-sign Terrell Edmonds? Could we figure out a way to get both Tremaine Edmonds and a left tackle and re-sign the guys that we want? Realistically, no. Realistically, it's probably gonna be one or the other. Like we re-sign the guys that we need to re-sign, and it's either gonna be either Tremaine Edmonds or a left tackle. But we'll see if he can work his magic and figure out a way to get that all done. I'll be impressed, and obviously that will impact what we do here. The reason why I think we have to take a corner at 17. Corner is a position that has eluded us for a long, 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 long time. It's been a while since we had some really good corners on our team. Um, if we've been successful with corner, it's been with free agency or trading for veterans. We have not done a good enough job of drafting and developing corners. Matter of fact, the last one we did was Mike Hilton, and we let him walk for some reason. He's probably like the best slot corner in football right now. Um, and part of the reason for that is because we've had to settle with whatever corner falls to us, right? And so I get the notion this is a very, very, very deep corner class, right? This is one of the best corner classes I've seen in a long time. There's about 10 guys that could be drafted in the first round. I'm not saying 10 guys are going to be drafted in the first round. I'm saying there's 10 guys that if they went in the first round, I would be like, that's a good pick, right? 10 guys that have like a first round grade on, personally. With that being said, a lot of people say, well, go get a left tackle at 17 and you can get a corner at 32. Fair. But I think with the Steelers' history, I think you want to get the best guy you can get, right? And at 17, you might be picking the third or fourth corner, maybe even the fifth corner. But I'd rather do that than wait till 32 and you could potentially be taking the sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth corner. Um, yeah, I just think I just think you have to get that position right. Give yourself a chance to get the best corner possible. Waiting till 32 is probably not the answer to do that. That's just my opinion. I rather I think our offensive line is at least fine the way it is. I think it will naturally improve anyway next year. So I rather see if I get a left tackle at 32 than draft a corner at 32. Even though I know there'll be a good corner at 32, I just want us to make sure we get the guy we really wanted at 17 and not settle for somebody at 32. Because that's been our issue, right? We've had to settle for these corners that we get and they don't pan out. I want us to get a guy. It's and unlike receiver, like we saw last year with George Pickens, George Pickens was like the seventh receiver taken, I think. Like we know how to draft and develop receivers. Unfortunately, again, which is insane because Mike Tomlin not only is a defensive guy, but he's supposed to be a defensive backs guy. Unfortunately, we have not done a good job of drafting and developing corners. So again, I think we need to take the best talent available at 17 at the cornerback position and not wait till 32. That's just me. Um, the other thing that we could do at 17 is Jordan Addison. So I want to talk about that. I get why people want to do it. He played with Kenny Pickett at Pitt. He won the Biletnikoff Award at Pitt with Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett loves him. Kenny Pickett swears by him. And people are seeing the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase situation and trying to repurpose that here in Pittsburgh. As you saw in my Kenny Pickett slide, Kenny Pickett is not Joe Burrow. And Jordan Addison is going to be a very good player, I believe. Jordan Addison is not Jamar Chase. So it does not make sense to do that for a number of reasons. One, people are talking about trading Deontay. I don't think it's going to happen because of the cap situation. I think if you trade him, he still has a huge dead cap hit. And so you're only saving like $4.6 million. So it doesn't make sense to trade him. Now, granted, I guess you could say that 4.6 could go to Terrell Edmonds or somebody like that. But again, it doesn't make sense to trade him. Even if, let's just say best case scenario, let's say the Texans gave you the 33rd pick for him, right? You got a second round pick for Chase Claypool. Deontay Johnson's been a better player than Chase Claypool. It'll probably take something of that magnitude for you to trade Deontay. So let's just say you got the 33rd pick. Okay. You have 4 picks in the top 50, which is awesome. You have the first and second pick in the second round, which is awesome. But by trading him, now you need a receiver. Again, I went back to the needs. Third receiver was low on that list. You know what I mean? Like, and we can get him a third receiver later on in the draft. And by the way, like I said, we're good at drafting and developing receivers. So even if we didn't get a receiver to the third or fourth round, I'm okay with that. Because again, and not to mention, you already have a guy in Calvin Austin who we haven't even seen yet because he was hurt his whole rookie year. So you just want to get another guy to compete with Calvin Austin for that potential third receiver spot. But now you need two receivers because you just got rid of one of your best guys in Deontay if you trade him. So I don't think that's going to work. Not to mention at 17, you can't even guarantee that Jordan Addison will be there. And I swear to God, you better not trade up to get him. That's just stupid. That's just stupid. So why create that need? If he's not there, then you traded Deontay for no reason, and now you're really stuck. The only way I would even consider doing it, and this is the only way, is if, like I said, if Omar Khan works his magic in the offseason and we get a middle linebacker and we get a left tackle and we re-sign everybody that we need and we cover all of our bases so that the only thing you really need is corner and defensive tackle, then fine. If Jordan Addison is there at 17, you take him. At 32, you take your corner. But now you're really going to have to hope that at 49, you get a good defensive tackle. This is not a good defensive tackle draft at all. Which, again, if you take your corner at 32, maybe you can get some. I mean, if you take your corner at 17, maybe at 32, you can get a defensive tackle and then get a left tackle at 49. But, yeah. And even if you trade Deontay Johnson for 33, right? Okay, you took Jordan Addison at 17, you take a corner at 32, you take a defensive tackle at 33. At 49, you have to take a receiver now. Like, forget anything else. You got to take another receiver. And then you have your second-year quarterback walking into his team with a second-year receiver in George Pickens and three rookies as his other receivers. Calvin Austin, because like I said, he didn't play his rookie year, so this will be his rookie season, basically. Jordan Addison, and whatever other rookie you just drafted. That's not a recipe for success. What an offensive coordinator, by the way, that we just talked about has not shown me anything. So, I mean, that's not a good recipe for success. At least, like I said, if you re-sign, if you have a great free agency period and you can do what you need to do with your other draft picks, at least, yes, then you could create that Cincinnati scenario where you have your second year number one in George Pickens, which is your version of T. Higgins. You have your young veteran receiver as your number two, which is, or your number three now, which is Deontay, which would be your Tyler Boyd. And then you have your Jordan Addison, which is your rookie, hopefully phenom, new number one in Jordan Addison, which would be your Jamar Chase. That's the only scenario I would be okay doing it. You have to kill it in free agency. Get your middle linebackers and get your left tackle. Maybe even get your guard or center in free agency. And then that way, the only thing you need is corner and defensive tackle. And you probably take a corner at 32. And then you probably got to trade up at 49, trade up to get a defensive tackle to make sure you get your guy. You'll be foregoing your third or fourth pick, but but if you did that, I'll be okay with it. I wouldn't be happy with it, but I'd be okay with it. But that's the only way I can see that happening. But no matter what, we have cap space, we have draft capital. I expect us to have a really, really, really solid offseason in which Mike Tomlin, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. But I'm looking at you. Next year, I don't want to see 9-8. Next year, 11 plus wins. Next year, playoffs. Hopefully, a home playoff game. Next year, I want to see a playoff win. That's all I'm asking for. Win a playoff game next year. All right. But I believe that's the last slide. Yes, it is. All right, everybody. Appreciate you guys. I'm for Brother Boy. You can find me at Never Forget Me. That's NEVA underscore the number 4 BRETT underscore ME on Instagram and Twitter. We are at the underscore dope blog on Instagram, the dope blog, all one word on Twitter. And join us next time as we continue to discuss. Oh, because you're watching this on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. And join us next time as we continue to discuss other people's excellence. Deuces.